Join Bumper to Bumper's Justin Guard this Saturday at 6 p.m. at Tom's Watch Bar for a KFAN viewing party. We'll have all of the games live on the big screens, delicious food and drinks, and your chance to secure exclusive KFAN swag. Get all the details now at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. In updated New York Jets news, it sounds like on the scouting trail, Max, that now they're using NCAA 25. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they're using NCAA 25, and I'm getting reports here. The Fan has learned that the New York Jets are scouting five-star football quarterback recruit Laquan Xavius DiCaprio from my EA college football 25 file. So
what is it? What is the name one more time?
Laquan Xavius DiCaprio, 3 apostrophes. I'll just let you guess where they are because I'm not entirely sure myself.
Oh. Well, just keep that in your back pocket as we start to get into NFL draft season. Laquan Xavius DiCaprio, potentially, and he's a wide receiver?
He's a quarterback, so some controversy.
He is a quarterback.
Some controversy going into the summer here.
Well, I don't want to ask. I'm just going to sound the. Is he pro style or is he dual threat, Max?
I mean, he's a dual threat.
He's a dual threat quarterback.
Dual threat,
okay.
As you could have predicted.
Oh, the world we live in. You know, talking about dual threat, the Minnesota Timberwolves are at Target Center tonight, and somebody that many Wolves fans wish was more of a dual threat on the court, specifically picking up maybe more of that defensive end. Karl Anthony Towns will be at Target Center, but not howling, not hooty-hooing, but he will be with Tibbs. He'll be with Jalen Brunson. He'll be with McCall Bridges and the New York Knicks. What excites you about tonight's game?
Just kind of to see the barometer of where the Wolves are at. This is one of the better teams in the NBA. They're top 5 team in the Eastern Conference, a team that if they have, I mean, obviously this is looking way far down the line, but a team, if they have championship aspirations, they could possibly be facing off against. And obviously you just want to play well against your former players, especially when your former players are playing better than they've ever played in their career, essentially up to this point. He's averaging that really struck me when you said that earlier, that he's averaging 14 rebounds a game. Obviously, Rudy's not there to kind of eat some of those up, but I mean, that's just the Cat's a double machine. He's shooting as best as he ever has in his entire career, and so you want to see the Wolves kind of match that level. Obviously, the Knicks, as of right now, have the last laugh in terms of the trade is seemingly working out a lot better for them, albeit again, optically, because at the end of the day, they do only have 2 more wins than the Wolves, and if the Wolves were in the Eastern Conference, they would be a top 5 team as well. So that's, but you want to play well against a guy like Karl Anthony Towns. He's going to be fired up, obviously, and we know sometimes that can be good, that can be bad. We could see some of the arm flailing, some of the Adrian Peterson-like trucking that we know is Karl Anthony Towns is prone to do sometimes.
Oh, when he tries to drive the hoop tonight, he can't stop.
Right. Oh, there's no chance.
And Rudy, I mean, Cat could still be out at the perimeter, and Rudy's just going to stand there, and as soon as Cat starts going, Rudy doesn't have to move.
Right.
Because Cat's not going to evade him.
No.
And it will be offensive foul. Oh, it's going to be, and again, going back to how we kind of opened the show, it's not, it's too hard on him when he was here, not hard enough. There were good things and there were bad things about his game and how things transpired when he was here. The one thing, though, that you mentioned is the flailing arms and just, the emotions getting the best of him at times. I mean, I don't know what the most shot attempts he's had in a game thus far for New York, but he is going to absolutely try to drop 50 on this team tonight, don't you think?
100%. Yeah, 1,000%. If you're him, you gave everything to this franchise. You started your career here, you wanted to end your career here, and then they pretty much just give up on you after the biggest year, arguably, in franchise history. So, yeah, he's going to be fired up. He's probably going to try to drop 50, if not 60, and set a new career high. And I don't expect it to be any animosity or anything like that. He still loves the Wolves. I saw a video of him not too long after he got traded where he was watching the Wolves Summer League games on his phone at a concert. So obviously, and we had a guy on the text line earlier that said he was a locker room cancer. That is just purely fan fiction right there.
I think that's a fallacy. Absolutely. I've never heard anything about that.
Nobody has ever came out, former players, aside from Jimmy Butler, who is a legitimate locker room cancer everywhere he goes.
Correct.
No player has ever come out and said anything negative about Karl Anthony Towns. And honestly, I think you can see that he had a little bit more of an emotional leadership role than many people would have guessed, because that just kind of doesn't seem like the Wolves are as together. Anthony Edwards even said as such a couple of weeks ago, right before they went on this run that they've been on, heating up a little bit here over the last couple of weeks. So Karl Anthony Towns obviously was an emotional kind of support for a lot of the guys. It seemed like everybody liked being around him and playing for him. So I don't expect there to be any animosity, but it's human nature as Karl Anthony Towns to want to show them, hey, this is what you're missing out on. And obviously the Knicks are going to play up to that emotional level as well. So hopefully the Wolves can match that, and Naz Reid and Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle can bring their best, and the emotions don't end up backfiring on anybody.
I'm glad you mentioned Jimmy, and it really doesn't have a lot to do with Cat and his return tonight, other than, of course, the melodrama that took place several years ago, and he's taking I'll take the third best players and I'll whoop that ass, and he kind of dunks on Tibbs and Layden watching during that practice. Cat's soft, Wiggins is awful, the whole thing, and then he leaves town. Now he gets with Spoelstra, who I still think, I know Pops has the rings, and from an age standpoint, the equity is he's taken two different generations of Spurs to titles, and that's impressive. Ultimate HOF, no doubt. I think Spoelstra is right up there.
100%.
And with Jimmy and Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, they make it to the finals.
Twice.
They are absolutely imploding now and are already talking about trading Jimmy. It's another situation ultimately, and I don't think there's the same vitriol there that there was here. But how has he truly spent his career, his young years, up and coming, Tomball, Texas, let's go crazy, with Chicago and Tibbs, and then ultimately, whether it's here in Minnesota, that stint in Philly, and now ultimately the end of his run with the Heat is all teams trying to figure out how to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of the look in the mirror. At no point, I think, while Jimmy, you could say, was correct in some of his criticisms of both Karl and Wiggins, at no point did Karl cause that kind of strife, that kind of drama or vitriol anywhere within Target Center
ever. No.
And so credit, credit again, Jimmy. It's not necessarily that you're not wrong. You're an a-hole.
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
Exactly.
You're an a-hole.
There's a time and place for the truth.
And that's and sadly that's Jimmy. Even though I love Jimmy's game, Jimmy's 35 now, and it's not looking as sweet as it used to. But Jimmy's game was pure when it mattered. Did go to a couple of finals, couldn't get it done with Spoelstra. And we digress. 8:30 p.m. tip, and that's going to be at Target Center. It'll be fun to see Cat in different colors. The most shots that Cat has taken this year was 30 against the Bulls, and that ended up being in a loss, but he scored 46.
Damn.
And, he shot 30 attempts at 60%, and then he shot 25 against the Heat. Well, I wonder if that was at Jimmy.
Yeah.
Was that at Jimmy?
It had to have been.
So, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say 25 shot attempts by Cat this evening.
That seems about right. And I'm sure the Knicks are going to be absolutely feeding him the ball, too.
Now, there's not going to be any booing.
There better not be.
I don't think there's going to be any booing.
But we did, as Wolves fans, did boo Andrew Wiggins when he came back, and there was no real reason. I understand being disappointed in Andrew Wiggins, but there was no real reason to boo Andrew Wiggins.
No,
he got some healthy boos when he came back.
Don't boo him. Boo Glenn. Exactly. Boo Glenn for saying, I looked that man in the eyes, and I shook his hand and gave him $150 million.
Still the most preposterous quote of all time.
But here's the question, though. No boos. But my prediction is, so he's either going to shoot 25 shots. That means he's on the court a bunch tonight.
Yeah.
He gets into early foul trouble.
Oh, man.
And that whistle goes. And he's got his third foul, and it's like 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. That's going to be as loud as Target Center has been in a decade.
It's going to be like a
they're going to
playoff
let him
environment.
have it. They're going to let him have
For
it.
sure.
Whoa! Couldn't help yourself again, could you? Look at those arms go. They're going to let him have it. If he gets into early foul trouble, he's absolutely going to he's going to feel a little bit of heat from the hometown faithful. But it's going to be a fun game. And what we're going to do now, we're going to pause, and we're going to again continue to keep track of Laquan Xavius Caprio and apparent scouting being done by Jets ownership, who use Madden players and Madden scores to fill out their roster of an NFL freaking franchise. And then we're going to head out west as we meet Hugh Millen, former NFL quarterback, actually born in Des Moines, raised in the Pacific Northwest, University of Washington. He was a Husky, so maybe we'll talk and see what his thoughts are on Penix now, getting the torch passed to him in Atlanta. But we're going to break down and hopefully learn a bit of what is the identity of the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to talk to Hugh about that when we return. Final hour continues. It's Nordo in for PA. Max Fuller with me. You're listening to The Fan.
Don't miss out on the feast this Friday at Buffalo Wild Wings Apple Valley. Join PA and Charch as they get you set for the showdown with the Seahawks on Sunday. Enjoy great food and drinks and enter to win great prizes. Doors open at 8 a.m. Get the full details at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. I apologize for the extended instrumental. We were hoping, we were crossing our fingers, throwing up a Hail Mary from a connection standpoint. Very happy to be joined by Hugh Millen. Now, Hugh, as he joins his former quarterback, more than a decade in the NFL under his belt, third-round pick by the Rams in 1986 out of the University of Washington. Threw his first 300 game in the NFL against the Vikings while with the Patriots. I don't like that nugget, but after his time in the NFL, he's settled into the Seattle area where he graduated high school, analyzing the beautiful game for KJR. Hugh Millen, I tried to throw up a Hail Mary. I apologize from a connection issue standpoint, but I'm just really happy that you gave me some time this morning.
Oh, hey, you know what? It was my fault, A. And then B, I would think when you start drawing Hail Mary references, I'm remembering Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson up the right sideline, and I know that that was against the Vikings, so I don't know that's probably a great reference.
No, that's a good point, and is inadvertently sticking the knife into many of our elder statesmen in the state of Minnesota.
Good to be with you, yeah.
Good to be with you as well. Now, Softy from Seattle, of course, Dave Maller. He told me, I said, because he's joining the host of our show, Paul Allen, tomorrow during our Friday affair. And he's like, you're going to love Hugh Millen. He's so freaking hardcore. So that's how Softy set it up. He said you're one of the best analysts that he's had the chance to spend time with. So I guess I'm looking forward to this. And I want to start here, Hugh. Michael Penix. Now, this is not Vikings-Seahawks related. Vikings and Seahawks. 105 your time, 305 our time here in Minneapolis. But, following it, Kirk Cousins, formerly with the Vikings, some news coming out that he's been benched. He's been hideous for the last month and a half. And now Michael Penix Jr. is getting the reins, taking the reins in Atlanta. From your standpoint out west, what did you guys think about Penix during his final stretch with the Huskies? And how excited were you guys about his potential NFL prospects now seeing that he's going to be the starter for the Falcons?
Yeah, well, first of all, Softy tends to oversell and I underdeliver. So just be prepared for that. But regarding Penix, look, everybody in Seattle loved him. He was second in the Heisman vote. And what was unique about his game, now, first of all, you have to acknowledge he was playing behind the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, given to the best offensive line in football. He had 3 receivers that were all drafted in the top 2 rounds, highlighted by Roma Dunze in your division, as you know. And so he had a great team around him. But this is a guy that any football fan would love to watch because he was a pocket passer who threw the ball down the field. I mean, not only was he number 1 in the NFL, if you measure him against all other draft picks in the first round, because there were 6, he had 77 completions over 25 yards. The next closest was 55 of those. So, and then he was also through outside the numbers, a lot of stats I don't have in front of me, but that's where he really specialized. And I think, for a lot of fans that don't like check down Charlies, he was the opposite.
Right.
This was a guy that was going to throw darts, lasers, dropping bombs all over the field, and so really thrilling player to watch, and a great guy at that. I've met him, he's just a humble guy, looks you straight in the eye, and we're all enthusiastic for his start down there, his first start.
I love that. To the big club, Hugh, Mike McDonald, his first year coaching. He's got this squad in the thick of it year one. How's everybody taking to McDonald, who has kind of a heavy-handed task of replacing Pete Carroll?
Well, I think just to understand real quickly who Mike McDonald is. Here was a guy, young guy. He got the University of Michigan defensive coordinator job in 21. In one season, he took the Wolverines from 94th in the country defensively in one season to 7th. So then John Harbaugh said, whoa, little brother, I need that kid back. So he brings him back in 2022, and halfway through the season, the Ravens are sitting there at 23rd in the NFL at points allowed by the defense, okay?
Yeah.
And then from the weeks 9 through the remainder of the season, The Ravens were number one in fewest points allowed. Then he comes back in 2023. Remember, this is just a 36-year-old guy. He comes back, and the Ravens win a triple crown of sorts. Their defense was number one in fewest points allowed for the entire season, number one in turnovers generated, and number one in sacks. And they had Jadeveon Clowney, on his sixth team, and Kyle Van Noy on his fifth. Older guys. Their defensive ends weren't anything special. So this was a guy that the Seahawks targeted. They say in the NFC West, you got Kyle Shanahan and you got Sean McVay, and you've got what are considered by many to be geniuses at their craft. So the target for the Seahawks was they want to match that intellectual horsepower. So the two guys they were targeting were Ben Johnson, obviously the offensive coordinator at the Lions, as you know, and then McDonald on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And I think one could make an argument that McDonald is his resume is as talented as anybody. Now, for the Seahawks this year, it was almost mirroring exactly what he had done in Baltimore in year one. Through the first 8 games, and after that Buffalo game where they just looked awful, they were 21st in points allowed. And then from weeks 9 until this Sunday, they were number one in the NFL. Now, they had a bad defensive game against the Packers, who scored 30 points. And so now they stand since week 9 at 4th. Whereas, again, they had been first going into the Packer game. But you see a lot of mirroring of what McDonald did with the Ravens, doing it with the Seahawks defensively.
I love that. Now, the way that I was framing it up earlier in the show, Hugh, is, we first of all, this squad, the Vikings haven't won at CenturyLink / now Lumen since 2006. So we're hungry for a W out there. We got playoff implications, all of that aside. But I was just, we don't play the Seahawks often enough where I can really catch an obvious vibe in terms of who this team is. And the way that I was framing it up earlier is I was having trouble figuring out what the identity of the Seahawks are. And you mentioned specifically defensively. I think you laid that out perfectly, and maybe that's just the obvious answer. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, you're trying to run the ball, but Kenneth Walker's been nicked up, save for Charbonnet going off a couple weeks ago against the Cardinals. Running the ball has been an issue, specifically since the bye, you could say. And then Geno, where's DK at in this equation as Jackson Smith and Jigba has really become the number one? Like, how would you frame it up in a 30,000-foot view, if you will, in terms of what the identity is of the Seahawks as we look at them this weekend?
Well, I would say let's start with the defensive side of the ball. They have an outstanding, certainly a top 5 secondary in theory, with Devin Witherspoon, a feisty leader. I mean, he is a jawjacker, an incredible nickel / corner, and he kind of sets the tone from a competitive standpoint. Reek Woolen, a corner who is in the 100. Well, I do the draft preparation for 26 years. I don't often see this. 100th percentile in height at 6'4", 100th percentile in 40-yard dash, and 100th percentile in arm length, and 99th percentile in vertical jump. The guy is we call him Reek the Freak, number 27. He may be matched up against Justin Jefferson. By the way, Jefferson will win that. They got a good secondary. The linebackers, they jettisoned 2 linebackers that weren't playing well. They made a trade for Ernest Jones, and they inserted the rookie Tyrese Knight. So their 2 off-the-ball linebackers are good. I think they've gotten healthy on the defensive line. I think Seattle feels good about their defensive line, and in fact, Mike McDonald tells people quietly behind the scenes he thinks the Seahawks defensive line is better than the Ravens. Let's go to the offensive side of the ball. Top-level wide receiver talent on paper. DK Metcalf is every bit the freak as a receiver that I described in Reek Woolen. Jackson Smith and Jigba in year 2 is really coming into his own because DK Metcalf garners a lot of what's called rolled coverage, where the corner comes down, safety over the top. You guys see that all the time.
Yeah.
It's called cover 2, and cover 6 is a coverage that where you're playing cover 2 to one side, but open access on the other. Anyways, the other receivers and tight ends are benefit from DK Metcalf. Kenneth Walker, I think, has the ability to be a top 5 back. He's special. Here's the thing about the Seahawks. Their offensive line is trash. Just absolute hot mess. I bang my head against not the wall, a moving door. I drink brown liquor because of this freaking offensive line. And it just trying to find holes for the running game, and protection for Geno Smith. That is the Achilles heel, the anchor, call it whatever you want. That's the view from 30,000 feet for me. Really good football team, really poor offensive line.
Wow. How much has that impacted Geno then ultimately? We were talking earlier as well, the lack of play action in this offense and, the health of Walker and the effectiveness of a Charbonnet. That kind of plays into it too. But how much has the offensive line altered decision-making in terms of making Geno the best he can possibly be?
Well, the new offensive coordinator for the Seahawks is Ryan Grubb, who was at the University of Washington calling plays for Michael Penix. He's a rookie in the NFL, never coached at any time. But he's a bright guy, and he's had a hard time just trying to figure out, sometimes early in the season he was doing a lot of empty formations. They still in shotgun. They were number one in the league early on. Now they're still seventh. So they're primarily in shotgun, and he's just trying to find something. Hey, do we max protect and leave extra guys in like he did at Washington? That was one of his things. Or do we get 5-out protections where everybody's out in the pattern and we can hit the hot and get the ball out quick? He's tried everything, and yet still the pressure Pro Football Focus that the NFL subscribes to, the pressure percentage out of 34 qualifying quarterbacks, Geno is at 38.5%. He's the 30th most pressured. So I'm sure that I know that you guys come from all angles and very unorthodox in your blitzing, but you're also the Vikings are also. They are number one in the NFL in terms of drop 8 coverages. So they're dead last at a 4-man rush, the Vikings, which is the standard, but they're number one in 5 or more, and they're also number one in 3 or less.
Yeah.
So I think that's really effective, and I got a feeling that's going to give the Seahawks a lot of fits because their offensive line is young and just frankly not very talented.
Let me hit you with a few more, and then I'll let you to get on to enjoy the day. Hugh Millen, longtime NFL quarterback, courtesy of the Washington Huskies. You can hear him analyzing football. KJR, the iHeartRadio fan family, Pacific Northwest edition. You mentioned Riq Woolen. I was curious about that. Philosophically, is that somebody who travels, whether it's Devin Witherspoon, who's got a bright future ahead of him? You mentioned it. I love that kid. And Riq Woolen, I'm glad you brought him up. I'm glad you brought up his physical measurables. When he was a rookie, and I know he stuffed the stat sheet, you're not seeing maybe the quantity of splash plays, quote unquote, with the picks and some of that. His rookie season was unbelievable. But I'm just marveling at him. And the 6'4", the 210, looks like maybe he plays maybe a 215. That's the biggest freaking corner I've ever seen, Hugh. Is this a guy that potentially travels? Do you just play sides? How do they attack opposing passing offenses?
Well, he's generally the right corner. He has traveled. I don't expect to see a lot of man-to-man in this because I don't think anybody can keep up with JJ. And from a size standpoint, you'd think that Seattle would have an advantage there. But just watching, I was studying the tape of JJ, and he has just beautiful body control. I think he's the best receiver in football. I played with 10 Pro Bowl receivers in my career, highlighted by Michael Irvin, and I just marvel at JJ. So and by the way, as you know, the Vikings are 30th in terms of garnering man-to-man. Yeah. So teams are just reluctant for good reason to do that. So I expect you're going to see a heavy dose of zone. If they want to dabble in man-to-man, I would think it would be Riq Woolen, although Devin Witherspoon is a feistier competitor. I would love to see Riq Woolen have Witherspoon's competitiveness, and Riq Woolen's coming off of a poor game. I mean, hell, he gave up a completion to Christian Watson in the game the other night, and he found himself turning to find the ball and backpedaling. Yeah, that is just I used to coach youth football for 24 years. Like that's the stuff that middle school kids do. So I think Riq Woolen, he's a freak, but I think he still got to zone up the Vikings.
How are the 12s taking all of this, the fan base, in terms of the transition and such? We were joking about it earlier. We're the home of the Vikings, so what are we going to do? We're going to try and find anything we can do to joke about regarding the adversary. And we're hearing all these "Go Pack, Go" chants at Lumen the other night. And I'm just thinking, because the Vikings at one point, despite the recent victory, lost 7 in a row. A lot of that was Russ, a lot of that Legion of Boom and all of that, but haven't won at CenturyLink since 06. Chester Taylor going for 95 and defensive touchdown from Kevin Williams, etc. Like, how are the 12s? Is it still that same environment? Is it still like John Ryan raising the flag the other night? Is it still just that nasty, one of the nastiest places in the NFL to play?
Well, I wish I could tell you that it is. I think there was a period of, I'll call it about 10 years at least. And you go back to the Kingdom is when they retired the number 12. So, with the cement roof, so the fans around here have had a reputation, I think, deservedly earned for a long, long time. But I think these last couple of years, and there's a lot of chatter on our airwaves, what is everybody doing selling their tickets?
Right.
And then you start going, can't we put some kind of zip code lock on this thing so that we can't sell to people from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I don't even know if that's legal from an antitrust standpoint. That sounds like restraint of trade to me. But in any event, there's a lot of angst about Seahawks season ticket holders selling their tickets online, and way too many opposed. You expect that from the Cowboys through the years and maybe the Steelers, but it seems like in the Packers. But I bet you're going to have a lot of skull chants coming on Sunday, more than you might expect. It's not the environment that it once was.
My last thing for you, just kind of getting an idea of how you guys are looking at the sprint to the finish line here, holding the top spot in the NFC West for a fair portion of the season and a lot of success. Now, as we get things, it's like McVay woke up, right? Like Puka comes back, yes. Cooper gets back, and they're a force to be reckoned with. What is this a playoff game? Are you guys looking at it in that regard where, we're only going to get in if we capture the West? We're not going to rely on the Commanders to kind of tail themselves out of the wild card mix. Worrisome in terms of recapturing the division. Where's your head at on all that?
Well, my head is that this is like a playoff game because the Rams now with the tiebreaker sit atop the division. They play the Jets and the Cardinals. Certainly they would think that's winnable games.
Yeah.
The final game of the year is the Seahawks at the Rams. But for that to matter, if the Rams were to beat the Jets and Cardinals, even if Seattle were to beat the Rams, if they lose to the Vikings, they'll lose the tiebreaker because going all the way down the list to about number 6, after you get past common opponents and the division, the conference, there's a attribute, strength of victory. Under that scenario, the Rams, even if Seattle beats the Rams in Week 18, the Rams win the division due to strength of victory. So for Seattle to be able to have that, we'll call it the NFC Championship game against the Rams in Week 18, they have to beat the Vikings.
Hey, Hugh, it was a pleasure talking with you and meeting you. And once again, we tried a Hail Mary. It didn't exactly, I what happened was I pushed off and they actually called it. That's what happened. And
oh yeah. And what about the orange coming out of the stands? Remember that? Was there an orange flying?
There was, yes. And it's one of many memories for a team that's never won a Super Bowl.
Well, you may do it this year, right? I mean, you got a hell of a team. I've been breaking you guys down. You don't need me to tell you that, but it should be a entertaining game. I think the Seahawks are on the ropes. They kind of felt like, well, you got to beat either the Packers or the Vikings. They didn't do the Packers, and from a Seahawks perspective, hopefully they got their wake up call and can be more competitive.
Hey, thank you so much for your time. Terrific work with KJR, and hopefully we're able to catch up again soon. Thank you, Hugh.
I love it. Yeah, call anytime.
All right, that's Hugh Millen, and analyzing from a Seahawks perspective, and it is a playoff game for them, but a lot on the line for purple. And is this a team that's going to handle prosperity and in some ways just do the things they need to do with so much in their grasp and so much on the line? Final segment. Thank you to Hugh. Final segment, 9 to noon is next. Final segment, 9 to noon. It's Nordowin for PA. Apologies for the extended instrumental at the beginning of the last segment, trying to get a certain kind of remote connection set up with Hugh Millen, who I appreciate for joining. He was absolutely awesome. But just so that we're clear via the text message machine, there's only one member of this show with extensive bathroom issues. So that was not, I just want to make that clear. I can't tell the future. I'm not a psychic. It was not bathroom related issues. As we put a wrap on 9 to noon, thank you so much to all of our guests today, not just from Hugh, but Russo, Lieber in studio. And thank you to Max for joining us today. Tomorrow, the Friday Feast is going to be at Buffalo Wild Wings, Apple Valley. It will be PA in charge, hopefully near a bathroom. PA in charge. You're going to hear Softy from Seattle, Softy Dave Maller, afternoons on KJR in Seattle. He's going to join Alec Lewis in the mix. You'll see, you'll probably see Chad Greenway there as well. So it's a Friday Feast. It's a 12-2 team. You heard it from Hugh. They're looking at it like it's a playoff game on Sunday. And in some ways, kind of getting in kind of the theme of this, the Vikings need to look at it as a playoff game as well, as they improve to 13-2. Still so much on the line from a division winning standpoint, from a potential first overall seed in the NFC standpoint. And it doesn't necessarily have to be style points, but you can go out there, put a beating on the Seahawks, make a statement before the border battle comes back to U.S. Bank Stadium a week from Sunday. Thank you so much for listening and hanging out with us on a Thursday. Thanks to Max. Let's go Wolves tonight. The cat came back. I'm sure that'll come up on the program next on The Fan.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.